Welcome to Mattys Mental Health Podcast, aiming to spread awareness on mental health by sharing the real-life stories.
Again, Matt Sherman is here today. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great, man. Great. What's new? What's exciting? What's going on in your world?
Oh, not too much. Growing a good beard. Trying to keep busy through the pandemic.
Can I ask you, how old is that beard? How long have you been growing?
I've always had a beard, but I didn't go for the length until about I maybe started in August.
Oh,
I've had a couple little trims here and there.
okay. Well, what made you go for the length? Just getting right into it here.
It's like a winter thing. I don't know. There's something about having a big beard in the winter. It's comforting for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of do it every winter, but usually back in the day, I used to always do the polar dip, and I would shave my beard right after. But
Okay.
but this year, I decided to go for the biggest one I've gone yet. I've never gone this big before, so.
And you got to go full Gandalf.
Oh yeah,
Do
yeah.
it till next
Yeah,
2 August from now.
The grays are coming in too, which is a first for me. So I'm enjoying
That's
those.
wisdom. That's
Yeah,
wisdom
yeah.
hair.
I like them. I wish they weren't so sporadic, but you know.
Well, we were kind of connected from a mutual friend, mutual guest, and yeah, you told me a little bit about your story and stuff, and you can just jump right into it wherever you'd like.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, the reason I'm here in the first place, I had been having a bit of a rough go over recently with not so much pandemic, but just some other things, which I'll get into. But I had written a post and put it up on Facebook, and it was a big leap for me, as I don't like to share a lot of private stuff. But I was kind of desperate to get some positive feedback and just reach out into the world, and
Right.
it ended up being quite big for me. I reconnected with a ton of people that I haven't spoken to in years, and got a lot of great feedback, and that led to this. So to get into it, I mean, the post kind of gave an overlap of my whole story of addiction and mental health. Something that quite a few people who know me didn't know anything about, as I juggled two lives, to be honest, for most of my life, up until about a decade ago. To begin with, I guess I'll start with what led to the mental health and addiction issues. I grew up in a good family. I had my father was a poet and worked in the arts. Was Jewish. I was raised Jewish. My mother is from Wales. We used to travel to Wales, and great family. We moved here when I was 1 to PEI, 1-ish. And I ended up in a daycare, kindergarten. And there was a lady in there who I guess took a dislike to me. So for the time I was there, she would beat me, throw me around, and accost me in pretty much every way she could, and that went on for the whole period that I attended. But then it turned out she was also my neighbor, so she ended up babysitting me as well. So
this was like a teacher at the daycare,
yeah,
or a daycare worker.
Yeah, and it was like a mix of she obviously didn't do anything in front of my parents, but it wasn't like she hid it. Like, she would be quite abusive to me in front of the other kids. I just remember being thrown to the ground a lot, dragged by my hair, punched in the back of the head, probably so I wouldn't bruise, I don't know. But I remember getting hit in the back of the head a lot. I was terrified of her. She was an absolute beast, like monster to me, and I'd piss myself as a kid, and then she'd, that would piss her off more, and then I'd get more of a beating. Quite traumatizing.
And she singled you out of the group so that, like, it wasn't happening to the other kids?
I've thought about that, and I've dwelled on that, and I cannot remember her ever doing it to another child. No. I felt like it was only me. Now, that doesn't mean she didn't, but I felt completely isolated. I do not recall another kid having that happen to them. And I have direct memories of like I remember we'd be laid out on these mats to take naps, and I'd have to go use the bathroom, but I was so terrified to talk to her or ask her if I could go to the bathroom. He had to get permission to get up, and I would just sit there and I'd go. I ended up peeing my pants and just lying there and hoping she wouldn't notice. But I mean, she always did, and this happened often. This is quite regular. I Yeah, and then like she babysat me as well. I just remember trying to hide from her a lot. Um, I have a hard time remembering if she actually abused me in the house, but I just remember being absolutely just terrified. Like as a child, like, monsters do exist, and she was a monster to me. So like it was just the worst. Um,
Right.
we ended up moving, and that got me away from her. I I don't think my parents had any clue. At least, well, I know they didn't have any clue because they didn't find out till many years later. But like, so I don't know if I just shut down and didn't say anything to them. But I don't know if I acted out in other ways because I have kind of a hard time remembering all that. But we ended up moving, and I went to another kindergarten briefly, and then I began elementary school. So pretty much, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say it probably would have been hard for a kid to even wrap your head around like this isn't normal. Like it's just there's like this authoritative figure, like the person is in charge, and then they're like you don't even know that you don't know
Yeah.
why they're doing it, and you don't know like it's not normal, and you should tell somebody.
Yeah, I mean, my parents were taking me there and dropped me off. They were letting her into the house. Like, I mean, that, in my mind, that must have been, I don't know if I mean, this that did lead into a lot of my mental health, but I guess I felt like I deserved it maybe, or I had done something bad. Um,
Right.
I mean, I've carried a lot of shame over some of this stuff, but I think as a child, yeah, like especially that age, I couldn't wrap my head around it. Um, there was also, I mean, I skipped over this but this is there was also not her directly. In fact, I've been struggling to figure out exactly who it was, but there was sexual stuff as well. It was another woman, a younger lady, and I don't know. From my mind, she's connected to her, and I didn't know if she had a daughter or if it was a friend or something. But there's something else there too, and I seem to, in my mind, they were babysitting me as well, and it's something I've talked to my mother about, and we know who the woman was, obviously, but I haven't been able to figure out who this other lady was. um, so there was some of that too. It was a lot. um,
Yeah.
I didn't talk about it until I was maybe, I don't know, about maybe like 10, 11. I had done some counseling. It was the first time I ever openly spoke about it to anybody. And I didn't tell my parents, and I don't know if the counselor I spoke to did or not. But I certainly didn't. Um, my parents didn't find out about it until I was 17 when I had an outburst, and I just kind of like laid it all out in the worst way possible.
So what led to you going to counseling at 10?
Well, so a lot of stuff. I'd have to go back a little bit. So, when I started school, so like, to be honest, that stuff was awful when I was a child, but it wasn't even the worst. The worst was to come. So,
Okay.
I got into elementary school. I was held back in grade 1, so all my friends moved forward, and I stayed back. I was in French immersion, which I really struggled in. I struggled in my entire life in French immersion until I was able to drop out in grade 10, and that really, um, that really made my education hard. But on top of all that, when I got held back, I ended up meeting, you know, all these new students, and I ended up getting targeted by a bunch of them for bullying, which was your typical bullying. Um, but then around grade 3, one kid in particular took I guess a, a very a big dislike to me. He was lived maybe a couple blocks from me, and at this point, I was going to school on my own, wasn't taking the bus anymore, and he would wait for me on the way to school and on the way leaving school, and would beat me and accost me every day for about 3 years, um, and at school as well. and humiliate me at school. And this was a day in, day out. So if I saw him on the street, he would do the same thing. And, punch me, throw me around, make me eat gravel, spit on me, whatever he could do. Just, this was every day. And then, yeah, so none of the teachers did anything at school. I mean, they couldn't have not seen it. It happened in class, it happened in recess, it happened everywhere, but nobody protected me. Nobody did anything. I must have said something to my parents at one point, because they did have him and his parents come to my place to try and get it resolved, which actually made it worse, because now I had ratted him out. So
Right.
just
So he doubled down.
Yep, absolutely. And
Just to let you know real quick, I think maybe the mic is like rubbing against the maybe your necklace or something, or just a little bit of like kind of
it's
noise.
rubbing it. Yeah, it is. That might help if I set my beard. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's better. Just like those micro movements. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry
That's
about
good.
that.
The beard came in handy.
Yeah. If it seems to drop, I'll shift it again. Yeah, so it was between my beard, I think, and this.
Okay.
That's
funny.
Yes. So yeah, my parents tried to intervene. That didn't help. Made things worse. I even remember my sister chasing. I have an older sister who's 5 years older than me, and I even remember her chasing him at one time. But I mean, nothing stopped him. And in fact, he ended up having a little brother that started school when we were maybe in grade 5, so he would have been in like grade 1 or so. And he would get his little brother to spit on me and kick me and stuff too, and I couldn't do anything, because if I touched his little brother, I get a bigger beating from him. So it was just like I was in absolute hell for the entirety of elementary school. And we were talking about authority earlier there. I just felt completely, I don't know, just
Helpless.
yeah, and neglected, and like nobody was looking out for me. Nobody could save me.
Yeah.
I've over the years through counseling, you get asked, do you have suicidal thoughts and all this? And I always say no, because as an adult I never did. But when I think back, like I absolutely did as a child. I didn't want to exist. Like it just every day was torture. And I actually remember once getting into an argument with because I started acting out. This will lead up to why I got counseling. So I started acting out. I was angry. I never physically hurt anybody else. Never physically attacked my parents or anything, but I would hurt myself. I would like break my own toys. I would like scream until I couldn't breathe. I know I was having panic attacks as a child, but that wasn't diagnosed. I didn't know what that was at the time, but I would hyperventilate. I would have I couldn't breathe. I'd be terrified to go to school some days. It would happen at school. I would sometimes throw up. I was having all this stuff, and then I remember one time getting into an argument with my father, and I grabbed a knife and threatened to kill myself. And I just remember thinking how disappointed I was because I couldn't follow through with it as a kid. Like
Wow.
Yeah, and it actually was something it took me a while to reflect on, to kind of realize how bad it was, because there's this idea that you're just supposed to, tough it out, especially in the 80s, like you just toughed it out and
Yeah.
deal with it. That was it. Nobody's going to help you. Just suck it up. And I'm sure with some kids they could, but I couldn't. And it really affected me. You can only you beat somebody every day for, 4 years. Well, I guess more than that, 4, 5, 6 years, and tell them that they're no good, they're nothing, and every other thing in the book. You tend to eventually you kind of believe it as a child, right? Like,
yeah, just like that's not normal at all, right? Not being able to do anything about it. Like, I mean,
yeah,
you can't just tough that out. Like, if it happens one time, you toughed it out. But I mean, this is like repetitive, like over and over and over, like affecting your whole life to the point that you're questioning whether you even want to be alive anymore.
Yeah. And I remember, like, I never thought of the word suicide. I just didn't want to exist.
Yeah.
I just wish I could just, be gone, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what I wanted. And then my parents got me into counseling. So yeah, they got me to counseling, which was it was good. It gave me a time to talk, a place to talk. But I have to be honest, like this is being an issue. I think I'm better now, but as a kid, I did not trust adults, and I did not trust authority. I mean, they'd never been there for me.
Hmm.
So counseling, I mean, I did come out a bit. I talked about a bit of stuff, but you know, I I still didn't trust them, and I ended up going to a summer camp as well for troubled youth, which I mean, it was okay. I actually liked the camp. I don't know that it helped me much in the long run, but it was nice to know that I wasn't the only one who had issues.
Right.
um, so that was great. But I mean, I was still the standout kind of like nerd, the kid who didn't fit in with anybody and like was always and I wasn't as bullied bad there, but there were still kids there that didn't take a liking to me. Um, so I don't know. I think I closed up. I just started as I started moving into my teenage years. I just started closing down more and more and was refusing more and more to listen to any adult. So even it got to a point where, and I don't recall anybody, but even if somebody had really reached out to try and help me, I probably wouldn't have taken it because I just got to a point where I didn't trust anybody. Um, and the only thing I had was anger. I mean, I didn't have anything else, and everybody was trying to take that away from me, telling me I shouldn't be angry. Well, I'm getting beaten every day. Why shouldn't I be angry? Like
Yeah.
I didn't want to give that up. I guess it was the only thing I could hold on to.
Yeah,
So
it's a natural response, right, to what's going on.
yeah, exactly. And I fought tooth and nail against everything. My parents would try and help me in different ways or get me involved in different extracurricular activities, and I tried for a little bit, and then I drop out. And I regret some of that now, but at the time, I just wasn't into it. I didn't know what I wanted in life. I didn't really think I had a life, to be honest. Uh, it wasn't until I was maybe 12. No, maybe younger than that. I don't know what grade six is, how old somebody is in grade six. I'm trying to recall that. But
11, maybe?
yeah, so like, yeah, something like 10 or 11, because like grade five or grade five and six. So I actually uh, used to go to Sam the Record Man, which was like my favorite place to go to and just go through the music. And there was a guy there who worked there. I wish I knew who he was, this younger guy there, older than me, but he was probably just a teenager. But for whatever reason, he took a liking in me and he started introducing me to music, some of which was probably, I was way too young to listen to, but he got me into hip hop. And I just remember
Oh, yeah.
I was the kid in like grade five listening to Public Enemy and Ice-T. Uh, and like other kids, I tried to get my friends to
Fuck
listen to,
yeah.
and they didn't get it, but I loved it. Um, and
Yeah.
it honestly saved me.
Like,
but
yeah, like, damn,
but
man, this shit's aggressive.
oh yeah, well that's the thing. So that's what I needed. Like I
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
nowhere to vent,
Yeah.
nowhere, because I was just being
Mhm.
told I shouldn't, and then I was too angry. But as soon as I heard that music, like the hip hop, and
Yeah.
I obviously didn't understand the black experience. I was too young to really grasp that, but I knew they were angry at authority, and they were saying "fuck you" to authority, and I
Yeah.
needed to hear that. It
Yeah.
gave me permission to be angry, and it
Yeah.
honestly changed my life. And I just wish I could find that guy and shake his hand, because like then I just got into more music, and I started developing more into myself. But the damage had already been done by that point, and school was still school was a prison sentence for me. I didn't want to be there. I hated it. Um, I had gotten by the time I was in junior high, I'd become a bit of a I was good at hiding. So like I would go to class, I would skate by, I would just get the marks to get by, but I could just kind of blend into the background, and hopefully my teacher, nobody would notice me. And that's kind of how I got through school. But I absolutely hated it. And then by time high school came around, um, well, I got out of French immersion by grade 10, but it messed up a lot of my education leading up to then, and I still struggled. But I got through, but I had actually dropped out in grade 11, and I was planning on leaving the island. I actually didn't tell my parents this, but I had made arrangements. I was going to go. I was done. I just needed to get the hell off PEI. I didn't want to be here. And then, so yeah, and then I found out I was going to be a father.
Really?
Yeah, and that kind of changed everything. So I'd moved out when I was 17. Was when I first moved out. And I pretty much lived in a party house, like a party house type thing. And,
Right.
and I dropped out, and I was going to move away. And then I found out I was going to be a dad, and I couldn't shirk those responsibilities. It wasn't for not even a second did I think I was not going to be involved. So I went back to school. I was determined to graduate. If I was going to be a father, I wanted to graduate, wanted to work, needed to get my shit together. So I went back to school. I graduated. I joined Chances, which was, they had a program going on there for new parents, which was mainly pregnant women, but I didn't know a damn thing about raising a child. So
Right.
to the basics, washing a baby, how do you hold a baby, all this stuff. So they put on this program that was great. Gave me some confidence, and I graduated school and I became a father. But so that's literally where these two lives of mine were created and kind of veered off in different directions. So I had this responsible side of me, which was, when I had my child, taking care of my child, going to working, earning money I could do to help. But then there was a side of couldn't deal with just being. So I was just I couldn't deal with life. So I just any way I could find to get messed up, I would when I wasn't around my kid.
Right.
And I was really good at doing that. Two separate identities.
Right.
Oh, sorry, kind of froze a second. Okay. So this is where the addictions kind of came in. So I'd started drinking probably around 15 or so, 14, 15. But I've never liked booze. I would just chug booze to get drunk, and that was it. But then I discovered pills, and back then you could get medication. You could get like cold medication with ephedra and stuff. So we would get high off pills all the time. My first time ever overdosing actually was in grade 12, just before before my child was born, and I'd taken a bunch of medication, and I just remember kind of almost losing conscience in class. So I asked to go to the bathroom, and then I did lose conscience in the bathroom, and I threw up in my mouth, and luckily I didn't choke. And somebody came to the door stall, hammering on the door, looking for me, and that's what woke me up.
Holy shit, man.
I guess that was an overdose. I don't know. It seemed I just didn't think much of it.
Right.
Just kept on going. And then
Lucky that you survived that, eh?
yeah, that was the first, but absolutely. Well, I'll get into it, but like I had a defeatist kind of attitude. It was kind of like,
Okay.
I wasn't ever trying to kill myself, especially at this point. I wouldn't have said I was suicidal as a teenager or an adult, but the few times I overdosed, I also, where I was conscious enough to know what was happening, I was just like, okay, this is how it's going to happen. Like I didn't really care.
Right.
So it was a weird place to be in.
Kind of like this disregard for your own life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always did it in private. Like I never well, no, it's a lie, I guess, I'll get into it. But like I rarely ever like that did that ever happen around other people. It often happened when I was alone. Other people showed up and helped me or whatever, but I got to the point where I was just taking any pill I could get my hand on. So I was taking all sorts of, tranquilizers, anything I could find. Luckily, God, I would be dead if OxyContin had been as available then as, it ended up, because I didn't. Luckily, it was just before that whole era and all that. So I miss that. But I think I would be dead if Oxy had been around. Um, that went on
Yeah.
for that went on for years, just drinking and pills. I did that forever. Um, and I ended up having 2 more kids. So I had 3 children, and I was working full time, going to college, uh, and you know, to everybody who didn't know that other side of me, they saw a guy going to school with his kids when he had his kids, working full time, part time, whatever. Like I didn't let on to that other side of my life. Now, the other people that I partied with knew that side of my life, obviously,
Yeah.
but a lot of people never saw that side of me. Um,
So you're busy doing all the things you should be doing,
yeah,
spending time with your kids,
yeah,
and then so it was like you were separated from the mother,
yeah.
and
We
then
were on and off for 7 years, but it wasn't a healthy relationship at all. So I had to get away from that, which is ironic because I not like I got away and got sober. It was too much.
right,
But yeah, but I
so,
still stayed involved with, like, I've always been involved with my children.
right. So then when you weren't with the kids and the responsibilities were done, you just went right to the partying and
Oh
the
yeah,
pills, drinking.
yep. I grew up with a crew that was into the party scene quite a bit, and I guess at the same time I was also playing catch up. You know what I mean? I'm being responsible all week, and have my kids now, but I gotta I missed that party and this party. I'm not gonna miss this one, so I
Yeah.
go, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
For many years, uh, it was just the party scene. Um, but uh, then my father passed away in 2006. Um, and there was a bunch of stuff leading up to that. I'd been in a relationship. It was my first time actually living with a partner, and it wasn't a great relationship either. But it fell apart around the same time that my dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So he was given a certain amount of time to live, and my relationship fell apart, and I had to move back home. I did not want to move back home, but I had no other option. Um, so I moved home as my dad was dealing with this, um, and it was an awful time. I mean, it's twofold. I was so happy to be there with my father in the last months of his life, but it was I just was not mentally in any like ready to deal with it. Um,
Right.
and so when he passed away, I just I just went down. Like I hit rock bottom. I ended up going on stress leave from work because I couldn't function at work. And then so I was
And
on the
what
sorry.
were you doing for work? I don't mean to cut you off, but what did you take in college and stuff?
Well, I got into tourism. Actually, when I left work, I'm trying to remember. I have a hard time remembering. So I think actually I think I was working at Shoppers Drug Mart when I took the stress leave. But I eventually got into the tourism industry, so I took a course called Tourism Travel Management, and
Oh
I
yeah.
worked in pretty much every hotel in the city and the hostel. And actually, I lived abroad in Ireland briefly, and I worked in hostels there as well. Um, so I did that for a while. I was always trying to. So I wasn't following any of my dreams, which would have been more in the arts. I would have gotten into film or something if I had been doing what I wanted to do. I was trying to find stuff that I could get work on PEI and be able to be
Okay.
around my kids. And
Right.
tourism seemed the way to go. Um,
Yeah.
but that didn't turn out great because that
Pre-COVID.
was pre-COVID. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it didn't pay great, and it was, my God, do you ever get treated like crap in the tourism industry? Like not so much by the employees, but just any person walking in the door having a bad day or a bad flight or a bad anything takes it out on you behind the
Yeah.
desk.
Oh yeah.
And
Problem
then,
with the hotel room,
yep,
you're not
I've
going to
seen it
see the
all.
best version of them.
Yeah, I did night auditing at the Rod Charlottetown, and I ran that place every night when I worked, and like the stuff I'd see there, I was just like, oh my God. Anyways, I got to the point where I got out of that industry, and I ended up getting into plumbing. But yeah, I'm trying to think back where I was. So I oh yeah, so after my dad died, I ended up on EI and going to the I had a friend of mine, and we ended up going to the gym. So I decided, trying to get like in shape, whatever. So, but it was the irony of it all, because like I go to the gym, do the weights, get fit, walk out, smoke a cigarette, go home, and do blow. Like that
Oh,
was
really?
that was my routine. Like I just the stupidest the stupidest thing. Anyways, but that became my life. So I really got into cocaine after my dad died. I had a lot. Cocaine for me was it gave me confidence. I could walk into any place and feel like strong, you know, because I have horrible anxiety. Um,
Right.
and this whole time throughout all those years, I had, I was having panic attacks, like really, really, really bad panic attacks. I have been hooked up. I have pictures of me like in early 2000s with like, all these things stuck to me with some old recorder stuck to my side that I have to wear for 2 days to record my heart to find out like what's wrong with me. And that happened a couple of
Oh,
times. I went through a bunch of this for years, till they figured out it was panic attacks. Because I honestly thought I was having a stroke or a heart attack, because they would be so bad. Like the pain in the arm, everything's going white, like it horrible panic attacks. Um, but
and what year was that when this
the
was happening?
Well, I've realized that been having panic attacks as a child, but this would have been in the late 90s, early
Okay.
2000s. Yeah. When
I
I
was just
first
thinking,
Sorry.
I was just saying, I think it's interesting, like, maybe that wasn't like, they weren't as quick to assume it was panic attacks as they would be today, or to understanding of panic attacks then.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I was saying earlier, like I know I was having them as a kid. I remember
Yeah.
hyperventilating and not being able to breathe, and like almost losing consciousness. I remember like throwing up, and like I know I was having them as a kid. The trauma was built into me at this point. Like I I have serious anxiety. I I manage it better now, and I do have medication for it. But for me, it's really social anxiety. I have a really hard time with groups of people. Well, even sometimes groups of my friends, but it can be really bad when I'm around people I don't know. Um,
Right.
I'm always feeling like I'm being judged, and all this comes from the abuse as a kid. Like I'm always feeling like I'm being judged, that I'm not, that I'm always doing something wrong, or uh, I'm very uh, self defeatist. I don't know. Like I don't have confidence, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
and so these panic attacks would come and go, but when I was, drunk or high, uh, I was fine. I was top of the world. I was
Right.
confident. And
As
cocaine
one
too.
is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, cocaine is, as they say, cocaine is a hell of a drug. It'll give you confidence. Uh,
Yeah.
so for me, it was like I needed it. I needed it, especially after my dad died. Like because I couldn't handle anything at that point. And I had gotten, it was funny because like, I was still doing all the right things. Like I went back to school. Like after dad died, I realized I didn't want to work in tourism anymore. I went back to school. I got into plumbing. Again, not something I would have ever pictured myself doing, but again, I thought that's where the money is, and everybody's going out west and working, and I need to start making some money now. So, I'm going to college, taking a plumbing course, got my kids one weekend, got the blow the other weekend. I'm like just plowing through. Um, I I graduate, and then I got offered a job almost immediately at West with a really great company. And so started my journeys out west. That being said, I honestly I could talk for hours, but like, I've been out west before. I had already worked in Banff briefly and returned home.
Okay.
But
Tourism industry out there.
in the tourism, yeah, yeah, I worked in a hotel, Inns of Banff, I think it was called. Um, so then I went back out west with this plumbing company, and it's almost like I think I did. I almost say it like almost like a military. Like I did like 2 tours of Calgary. but
Seen a lot of shit, man.
oh yeah, I hate it. Oh my god, we worked in I did industrial plumbing, and we worked in a lot of bad areas, and I would have to show up at like 5 a.m, and I would hang out at the Denny's because it like we literally had cops come to our sites at times and tell us like to be careful because there's a meth house, like this guy over here thought you guys were looking at his wife, so he threatened to come on site and start shooting you. Like this is stuff that happened all the time working out there. So I hate it. That was not great either. But I was working out there, and actually when I got out there, I had to kind of go sober because I didn't have any connections. So I was kind of struggling with that. But I was getting through it, and just so happens one of the guys in work, I started making friends on the site, and one of the guys there, he's got direct connections. So right away I'm back in. And the thing is that oh yeah, no problem. The thing is that I think a lot of the blow that I was doing on PEI, I mean, I know it was stepped on a million times, so God knows what I was taking up my nose half the time.
Yeah.
But this stuff in Alberta may have been stepped on just a few times. Like it was so much stronger than anything I'd ever done.
Fresh off the plane, Colombia.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, I'd never seen anything like this before. But we were in a car once, and he gave me about a quarter size mound of it. And even I looked at that and was like, sure, take that much? And he was like, oh yeah. And I took it, and it was almost instantaneous. I knew something was wrong. Like as soon as it went in, it was just like my heart, like I've felt my heart pump before, but I literally thought my heart was going like this, like it was just going to explode out my chest. I threw up like seconds after. I started losing vision. Everything kind of went tunnel wise. I couldn't talk. I was sweating like hell. I know he could tell something was wrong. I remember seeing the hospital go by us and wishing I was at the hospital. We went back to his place, I think it was. I just remember I somehow got to a bathroom, and I remember looking in the mirror and collapsing. I have an odd memory of being on the floor, and that was it. I don't know. So I have no recollection what happened until I came to at my place. Now, I'm assuming I got myself into my place because I don't recall any of my roommates saying anything. I honestly don't know. It was a complete blackout. I was so sick for weeks. It felt like weeks. It might have only been days, but it felt like weeks. I was so sick. Like it felt like I had run 50 marathons. Like it was horrible. And not long after that, I ended up coming home, maybe a couple more months, and I didn't sober up. But that is when I realized I had a problem.
Yeah.
So that's something.
Doesn't sound like a fun time.
No. That was the worst overdose I ever had. I think I was close to, I mean, I know I was close to death.
I just think it's crazy.
I remember thinking it. I remember being comfortable with it. Sorry?
Can you hear me?
Oh no.
Still here?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay, good.
Okay. Still here.
Yeah. So you remember feeling comfortable with death?
Yeah, I actually wrote about it in a short story I wrote last year. I was very comfortable with dying at that. Like I wasn't scared. Mm-hmm. Which is not the case now. I'm trying to work through my mortality now, but like it's actually something I kind of miss. Like there was I had this comfort. There was no fear. If this is how I was going to go, this was how I was going to go.
Right.
So it still took me, I mean, I'm just throwing this number out there, probably like another year, year and a half, well, yeah, maybe, yeah, about a year and a half until I decided I just needed to get my shit together. And it was because of a friend of mine who, one of my oldest friends, who had recognized that I wasn't happy. I think he had a good idea what I was doing, but I don't think he fully knew the ins and outs. Like at this stage, I was doing blow by myself in my bedroom. I was totally in it. Like, um, so he reached out and kind of pulled me out of the world I was in and just kind of got me going to, I don't know, like more laid back, chill events, like, playing board games and pumpkin carvings and, hanging out with people whose sole ambition isn't to get an 8 ball and get it all up their nose in one night.
Yeah.
And that really saved me. I mean, he saved my life, to be honest. And then another close friend of mine also decided to get cleaner at the same time. And with the two of them, I was able to get through it.
Wow.
And yeah, because I don't know that I would have made it otherwise. Um, I was in a really, really dark place.
So when you start going to these social gatherings that are a little bit more healthy,
Mhm.
did it take a little while of going through there? And what are the sort of the thoughts that went through your head? Like, did you have kind of
Um,
that conscious thought, maybe I should be doing different things, or kind of
I
show you a
knew,
different way of life?
yeah, like, I mean, as soon as I started doing it, I knew this is what I wanted. Um, but he had to entice me because that all that anxiety came into it too, because like all the people that I was meeting were strangers to me. So um I was very scared to meet new people. I mean,
Yeah.
I I was I was carrying so much shame, and I still do, but like I was so afraid of anybody outside of the circle of friends that I partied with discovering that side of me. And so just coming out of it, it was hard. Um, but they were good people, and they were nice to me, and I was able to put on a smile, and eventually I liked it. Like it was something I looked forward to doing.
Right.
And these are great people, and yeah, and it led me in the direction I needed. What also helped too is that when I came back to PEI because I wanted to be with my kids, and I was really struggling out west outside of the addiction, just being away from my children. And I tried to work on PEI and plumbing, and I was, God, it was so hard back in then. I think it was like 2008. I was having a really hard time finding any. Even though I was a second year apprentice, I just couldn't get a job that paid much more over minimum wage, and it
Right.
was going to take me forever to get my red seal. And so right around the time that I got sober, I got a job in aerospace, um, and that helped too. So like it all kind of happened at the same time, right? I got this new job. My friend was reaching out to me, and I latched on. I was like, this is my opportunity to kind of like get my life, back on a good path. And so I went
Right.
whole hog into it.
Whole hog.
Yep. I'm good at doing that, right? If I find I throw myself into whatever it is. So if it's doing blow, I'll throw myself right in. If it's like
Yeah.
if it's
Where's the
doing
deep
something,
end right there?
yeah, exactly. I'm it's I have this addictive personality, so whatever I choose to do, I got to do it. I got to see myself. I got to see it through. So I uh
Right.
I just jumped right in. Um, Now going off, it was hard going off hard drugs. Like it was not easy. It wasn't like coming off heroin or anything. I'm not trying to say it was like that, but like I I mean, for months, if not a year or more, like I craved it. Like I wanted it. Like
Hmm.
I just had to keep telling myself not to do it. um
Yeah.
and I was still around it. Like I hadn't totally cut myself off from everybody yet, and which I eventually did do. I pretty much cut off anybody in my life. Um and I felt bad, but I had to do this. I just cut off everybody in my life that was still in that scene. I just couldn't be around.
Yeah.
Um
Right.
so that also closed my circle of friends down a lot too. Uh but I needed to do that.
necessary, right, though, to grow and move forward.
Exactly. I had, I was able to get sober on my own. I had looked at going to, like, rehabilitation programs and whatnot. But again, the whole fear of authority, and also a lot of these organizations were connected with the church,
Yeah,
and I was just not. It,
not
it
into
just
church.
wasn't something I wanted to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
and so that I regret is that, yeah, I was able to get clean on my own, which I'm very proud of,
right,
but I wasn't able to work on me. Like, I wasn't able to work on the mental side of it.
right.
Because if I got in rehabilitation, I would have gotten that.
12 steps and everything.
Yeah. So luckily, because the company I started with was a brand new company, so after a couple of years, we got a good benefits plan, and I took full advantage of it and started going to counseling. So ever since that was over a decade ago now, I've been with the company for 13 years, so that was quite a long time ago, and I've been doing it ever since, and it's helped me a lot. But I had a lot of shit I had to deal with and go through and come to terms with, and I'm only recently coming to terms with the shame, because me coming on here and talking to you, and the post I put on Facebook, like, I if you had asked me about doing that even a year ago, I would have said fuck no.
Right,
Not in a second.
right.
Sorry, I don't know. I didn't ask if I could swear on this.
Oh, you can, yeah.
But,
Cursing
okay.
aloud. No, well, it's
Okay.
awesome for you to come on, man. It's awesome for you to share, and that shows growth for you to be able to do it, man.
Well, I think I've been trying to. I want to give back. I want to help other people somehow. It's kind of a
Yeah,
family trade, and I'm the only family member who hasn't given back. And I've often daydreamed about helping out somehow, either with other people who've been abused or bullied or addictions.
right.
One thing that I feel that's really important to me right now is that I'm really happy with the way, like, we have like Pink Shirt Day now, and we talk about bullying, and that's it's people actually talk about it. What
Yeah,
I don't see what I don't see often enough is I don't see adults who have been bullied or were bullies coming out and talking about it,
yeah,
because I'm the trauma I experienced. Like, I'm the example. Like, this is what can happen to you when you don't get help.
yeah,
Um, it
yeah.
can
That's a
derail
good
your
point.
entire life.
That's a good point.
And I want to see, yeah, because I I just know that I'm grateful that for that one guy at Sam the Record Man. But God, if somebody I didn't have that teacher that reached out or saw me struggling. I didn't have nobody, because I think, I mean, it's my fault too. I was so good at hiding it. I was so good at just disappearing into the crowd. Oh, I keep seeing connection unstable. So I just hope more adults, maybe the more I talk about it, and I've already had people talking to me, messaging me, which is great. I'm hoping maybe this conversation with you might lead more people to reach out to me, and I just want to see more people having this discussion, because I know I'm not the only one who's been traumatized from bullying and from abuse
100%,
as a
man.
child. Yeah.
100%, man. And I think just what you said is true. Like it's I've seen it a lot with this podcast,
Mhm.
with guests that have came on, and after they share, like, they messaged me and said, like, so many people reached out to them, and a lot of people reached out to me too, and just said, like, thank you so much for doing this, and, like, I went through similar things. um
Mhm.
and they share, and it's like, well, like, when you see someone else share and it resonates with you, just it's kind of like that opening
Yeah.
the bridge to the other person to share back.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be there and listen to anybody if they want to reach out. Um, and I'm gonna try and figure out what I can do moving forward because I want to find more ways of helping and reaching out. I just got to figure out what that is. But
That's
this is
awesome, man.
this is another step in that direction. Yeah.
For sure, man. I just have one more question. I think
Mhm.
what are the biggest things that have helped you? And I guess what are the tools that you've developed, maybe even over the last 10 years of growth and daily practices to help with your
Mhm.
anxiety and what's that whole kind of process been like for you?
So I have a bunch of things that when I was young, I made plans in my 20s that when all my kids were grown up, which they are now, that I would one way or another I would start following some of my dreams and my passions. So obviously, at my age, I'm 43 now. It's kind of hard to make that a career, but one of the things I started doing was getting into. I'm passionate about film, and so I'm lucky to have friends in the industry, and I was able to contact some and get on sets and just volunteer and do work, and eventually got, for whatever reason, they decided to put me in front of the camera occasionally, um,
Nice.
and I got to write some scripts, and I got to produce a short film, which I was really proud of doing. Took me 5 years.
Wow.
It was a group of us, but it took 5 years for us to get that made, and that helped me so much. That was a huge struggle for me too, but I needed to be doing something that I was passionate about because I
Hmm.
needed that confidence. Because the one
Yeah.
thing I've always lacked is confidence.
Mm.
Um, and then working out became something that I've been on and off with the pandemic, but it's something that's always been there for me pretty much since my dad died.
Yeah.
Um, it's very important to me. Uh, I got I got into rock climbing a couple years back, um,
Oh,
which
sweet.
I still find it ridiculous because I'm utterly terrified of heights. I like I cannot stand heights, and yet the minute I'm rigged up, I feel totally safe, and then I just go at it. Like I
You're
don't.
ready
It
to
was
go.
such an eye opener to me. Like I never. It was climbing would be the last thing I ever would have pictured myself doing, and that was probably even more so than producing my own film. Climbing gave me so much confidence because
Yeah.
I just never thought I could do it. Yeah. So I think the big thing is like take risks
Mm.
that are positive, like risks that'll help you, but take risks. Don't
Outside of your comfort zone.
don't yeah, get out of your own mind because
Mm.
I'm a prisoner of my own head, and I
Yeah.
just sometimes need to just shut my eyes and just leap. And
Hmm.
I've been doing a lot of that over these last couple of years, especially through the last 10 years. Um, I guess I should hit on quickly that just recently I've been in a rough spot just because of and it's not even the pandemic, just it's just bad luck that the pandemic is happening at the same time, to be honest. But I've had some health issues, and I had a cancer scare. I got shingles, had nerve damage for months, still kind of do. Um, there's been a lot of health issues with my family, and some bad things that happened there. Uh, and so I really, really, really have been struggling. And then add the pandemic onto that. Plus, one of my best friends moved out of the country. It all happened around the same time. A bunch of people I know passed away in the last
Wow.
year.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute awful year.
Hmm.
And the best thing I did was reach out um, with that Facebook post. So you just have to, again, you just have to go out of your safety zone, and you just have to do what's best for you. And if that means climbing a wall or asking a friend to talk to, whatever it is, just do it.
Hmm.
But
No,
yeah,
I think that's a really really wise message. I think that's kind of a place that a lot of people find themselves. I mean, it's just the comfort zone, or like your just not facing what you have going on, right? Like
Yeah.
not reaching out, not sending that message to send help, or taking that step to go get help, or taking the first step to climb the wall. Or, it can be anything, but just taking that first step.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's hard.
It's
hard. I understand. I totally understand how hard it is, because I still have days where I can't get out of bed, but
Right.
like eventually I do. Eventually I put my feet down. So yeah.
It sounds
I
like
totally
creating
understand,
was
but
really
know. I
important
think
for you.
absolutely it is, and I want to find a way. Well, like I said, I think I mentioned earlier, I did write a short story last year about my overdose in Alberta, which was published. I'm part of a writing group, and we publish every year an anthology of our short stories and whatnot. And that's been amazing for me. I'm I'm honestly the worst writer in the group, but I just love it. I just love being around other people who create.
Yeah.
I realize I can just sit on a film set and just watch people, and I'm just filled with like energy. Like
Mm.
I just love being around people who create. And so I'm trying to do my own, although I'm up, I've got a lot of years of catching up. A lot of my friends have dedicated their whole lives to it, and here I am jumping into my late 30s, 40s. I'm just like, I'm kind of just trying to stay afloat in a deep pool right now, but I'm loving it. Yeah.
The other side of that too, though, is like, you have like a perspective that they necessarily don't too. Like you can put all of your life perspective into your creations.
It's funny. For the longest while, I came up with a million great ideas for stories, and it was the same with the short film we shot. I realized, and I mean, I it's an old saying, but write what you know. And once I fully accepted that, I started being better at writing and just doing it, because I just started writing instead of just making up stuff. I have so many stories to tell, and so many stories that I can kind of mess around with. I can switch around with. There's something I can start with, right? And so I just wrote my first horror story. It's only in its first draft, but I've never done horror before, and I wanted to, and it's got an addiction element to it, and I just have a way. I'm gonna keep going with that, because I do, like, I have enough. I think I have enough stories to last me the rest of my life. So I have a lot of writing ahead of me.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
And a lot more years to do it too.
absolutely. Yeah, a couple more decades at least.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I just want to say thanks so much for coming on and sharing.
Thank you for
Really
having
enjoyed
me.
talking to you. Really enjoyed hearing your story and hearing how far you've come and what you've been through.
Well, thank you, and thank you for doing this. It's you're doing a good thing. It, I'm glad to see somebody's doing this on PEI. Get more of these stories out.
Yeah. Thanks so much, man. I'm gonna send you a gift
Okay.
from our sponsor. Got sea salts here.
Ooh.
So we got 4 different kinds of sea salts. This is from the Prince Edward Island Sea Salt Company.
Awesome.
40% of all proceeds go to mental health programming at PEI.
Okay, that's awesome.
So I'll send you over some salts.
Lovely.
And yeah, man.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Peace, man.
Woo.